Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. I wanted to do a video on making these really neat crochet towel rings or towel holders. So this is a great project to use up all of your scrap yarn if you're like me and you have a big basket or a Rubbermaid container full of little balls of yarn. It does not take a lot even to go all the way around the ring. So you can use up scrap yarn that way, especially if you have two yarns that match up relatively well, but you're like me, you have a whole bunch of yarns that wouldn't match if you made a scrap hat. Also, this is a really good project for Red Heart Super Saver, which is usually not a good yarn to make chemo caps out of. You can use it to make caps for the homeless or whatever. It's not the softest yarn, but it does work really, really well because it's durable. It is a little stiffer. It has a lot of body to it. So you want to use a yarn, a worsted weight yarn that has a lot of body to it. This is made out of Hobby Lobby's. I love this yarn because I had this in my, I had scraps. This is made with I Love This yarn. So it does really nicely, especially along the edges with the ruffles. It works really well. This is a combination. This lighter color is I Love This Yarn by Hobby Lobby, and this is Red Heart Super Saver. So you can mix and match, but yeah, using a stiffer yarn like Red Heart would work really, really well for this project. So I'm doing a craft fair coming up, and mostly I make hats. So I wanted one other thing maybe I could whip up quickly that might sell easily. So when I went onto some Facebook pages, people had asked, what is your biggest seller at craft fairs? One lady said her crochet towel toppers, she sold 54 at one show. Now I don't know how big of a show that was. But ordinarily, if you guys are my age, 55 or older, you remember the ones where they would take, a lot of times they would just take half of a towel and then they crocheted across the entire top of it, right? So then you would have the towel topper at the top, and then there would be like this loop, strap where you could strap it onto your stove or whatever. But then what happens when the towel wears out, you can't ever change the towel. So I thought this was a much better option. So I struggled with a couple of ways to do this. So I saw that people had made these with ponytail holders. So I got these at Walmart. You can get 24 for $3.84. That's 16 cents a piece if you're calculating your cost to make these. And they actually work pretty well. These are about 3 inches in length if you measure them, 6 centimeters, I think, in metric. They make a pretty good size hole. The only problem is people said, well, what if they break eventually? I think you would get more wear from these because these are the nice, really thick ones. I wouldn't skimp and go to the dollar store. I would get the good quality, really thick ones. There's no telling how long they'll last. I would think just putting a towel in, since you're not pulling it and stretching it, overstretching it a whole lot, I would think they would last a pretty good long time. But with that in mind, I found another option. So I went to Amazon, and these are called ring toss rings. So the little carnival games you play where you toss the ring on top of the bottle, which is almost impossible. That's what these are. I had originally ordered, I didn't really know what size. You can't really tell until you get it and put the towel through it how big it's going to be. So these are 3, I think these are 3 inches, and these are 2.5. I like this size a lot better. These are all red. When I ordered the larger ones, they actually came in a whole bunch of different colors, but then when I ordered the small ones, they only came in red. It hasn't been a problem with the darker yarns. I guess if you used white, you might be able to see the red through it. You could potentially spray paint them with a spray paint that adheres to plastic. But that's, once again, a lot of work. So 36 of these, and I will put the link below in the description, at Amazon were $10.99. All right, so let me show you. We'll put this one. These are these really, really thin towels. I got these at Walmart for 88 cents. They're not the real good quality. They're just the super thin. But, you know, if you decide you want to sell a towel with your ring, the one lady said she was getting about $12 each for her towel toppers with a half. I think she was doing a half a towel. I don't know if she was doing a whole one. But it's just a lot of trouble to go buy all those towels. I'm just going to sell the towel toppers themselves. This is one with a flower button, and all this is just a flower that buttons over the top. You can certainly leave it just plain. This flower is from a paid pattern on Etsy. I'll put the link in the description below, and I cannot show you a video for it because patterns are proprietary and they're copyrighted. So I'm going to show you everything up into this flower, and if you want to add a flower on it, you will have to go to the to Etsy and purchase the pattern for the flower. Okay, so you can see how that's a perfect size. I really don't think you need anything more than that. These are really light. They weigh 2 grams each one of these rings. So it doesn't add a lot of weight because what you don't want is, you know, when you put this on your stove or whatever, you don't want to overstretch it and have it being pulled down a lot. If you have a little thicker towel, this is a little nicer towel that's a little bit thicker. I'm going to put this one through one of the ponytail holder ones. So you can see it's pretty easy to put through there. So I'll probably do more of the rings. I just like the way they look a little bit better. So this works. It's not quite as, I don't know, it's a little more bunched up in there in the middle than, let me see if I can make it a little bit nicer. It's a little more bunched up than the ring. I think it just looks nicer in the ring than it does in this one. But you can see it works too. So this one works. The ponytail holder works as well. I just really like these rings. I like how nice and round they are. I like nice and round shapes. So I'll probably I think I did 3 of these with the ponytail holders. And I'm going to do these rings. Here's one. This doesn't have the flower, so you don't need the flower. You need a big enough button that it's not going to, you know, that it will button, but it won't come out when it's stretched. You don't want the button to be popping out of there, which it'll do if it's too small. Okay, so I know that's a really long intro, but I had to go over everything that I tried, and a lot of people use those metal bangle bracelets. I looked at those. They're expensive, relatively expensive speaking, when you're talking about 3 cents a piece. So if you're making stuff for craft fairs, you of course want your cost to be as low as possible. All right, with that being said, let's make a towel ring. Okay, so here's my 2.5-inch ring. And this is just some scrap yarn I have left over. This is Hobby Lobby's. I love this yarn. I'm really sorry I don't remember what the color is. I am using a I always go by the millimeter. I don't ever go by the letter. And the reason why I don't ever go by the letter is because you'll see, you know, a letter and then it might say 5 or 5.25 or whatever. So I just go by, it's a 5 millimeter, but it is an H hook if you go by letters, okay? Now, what a lot of people do to start these tutorials for these towel rings is make a slip knot. The problem I found with that is that it makes a bumpy knot at the top. So I'm going to show you another method that I'm going to use. Okay, so this is the tail of your working yarn over here. Okay, this is a tail, and you don't have to make it very long because we're going to crochet over the top of it. Okay, so this is the short tail over the front. This is the working yarn in the back. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and grab my yarn here, okay, and I'm going to pull up, come underneath here like so, And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through just like that. And that's going to help keep this stable, okay? So you're gonna have, it's kind of like making a magic loop into the ring. So now what you want to do is we want to crochet over this tail because you don't want to have this tail, okay? So we're gonna do a single crochet. You can pull this tighter too. We're gonna do a single crochet all the way around the ring, and you want to make sure your stitches are really, really close together on this one. And it really doesn't matter how many stitches you have, but it needs to be an even number. So it has to be divisible by 2 in order for the ruffle to come out correctly. So we're going to go back into the ring. We don't pull up a loop because we're doing a single crochet. Grab your yarn, yarn over and pull through. And you may need to use a 5.5. I like it really tight, so I use a 5mm hook. You can use whatever hook you want. Okay, come up, and it's going to be a little tedious until you get the first few stitches over this tail. Just going in, and it's going to turn a little bit, and then just bring it back up into alignment. Okay, I'm going to go back into the loop, pull up a loop. Okay, and you're going to just keep doing this all the way around the ring. Okay, and you want to make sure that, you just want to make sure that this is nice and snug. So see there, it's kind of nice and snug. And as you go along, you're going to scooch your stitches closer together. Okay, there's no set length that you have to crochet over your tail. I do it probably maybe just a few more stitches longer than this. I don't know, that's maybe a little over an inch. So maybe do 1.5 to 2 inches over the tail. Okay, go under, pull up a loop, and pull through both loops, okay? Hold on, I'll do it a little bit slower. Okay, so once again, take your hook and you're just going into the loop, grabbing your yarn, pulling up, and make sure when you grab your yarn, I see people doing this backwards and I don't know if they realize they're doing it. When you go into here, you should come up behind, okay, not this way, not that way, behind your yarn, pull it up here, and then, oops, to finish the stitch, you should come here and under. I see a lot of people coming just here and through, and that's not going to be the same type of stitch. That's going to end up different. Okay, try to keep your tension as even as possible on here so that you have this nice and even. So probably right here I'll cut this tail. That's about all you need to crochet over at that point. So I'm just going to cut my tail right here. Okay, now it can go a little bit faster. Okay, so now you're just going to go in here. And you also, you know, you have the speed option on the very bottom on YouTube. If you look down here in the corner, there's a little wheel and it should say YouTube speed. You can slow this down. So keep on going, and you're probably going to end up somewhere, if you have this size ring, about 50 or so stitches. So meet me back up when you get enough stitches on here to cover the entire ring. Okay, so I have finished my ring, and I have 48 stitches on here. So you can kind of see that they're nicely spaced. They're not super bunched up, but these stitches are going to be really tight, and you want it to be tight on here. And I found I did a couple without the ruffle on the edge, and the problem with that is, see how this will tend to turn and stuff. So when you take a towel in and out of here, it tends to get, I don't know, you have to undo it and redo it. So that's why I like putting that little ruffle edge. Okay, so this is my 48th stitch right here. Okay, So I am going to slip stitch into this very first stitch right here. See, I'm going to go under both of those little loops. It's a V. That's my first stitch. I'm going to come under, grab my yarn, pull through, and pull all the way through right there. Okay, so now you shouldn't be able to see any part of your ring. Okay, and all right, so this is the front. You can kind of tell it looks a little different than the back. Easiest way to tell is your little V's on your stitches are going to be very prominent on the front. If you turn them over, see the V's are facing away from you. So you want to make sure that, you know, this is the front of your work. All right, we're going to chain one. Okay, just that's chain one right there. Okay, so we're going to chain one here, and we're going to go back into that same stitch that we just slip stitched into. Okay, so I just slip stitched right into there. I go right into that same stitch underneath, pull up a loop, and pull through two, one single crochet. That's one. We're going to do 8. We're going to go through both loops in the top, grab our yarn, pull it through, grab it, pull through again. That's 2. I'm going to go through, see this, the V. I'm going to go through both stitches of the V, come around, pull up a loop, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I found that 8 makes just about the right size strap. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so this is going to be our strap that our button strap that we're going to strap on. You can make it whatever size you want. 4, 6, 7, 8. You want to count your V's at the top and make sure you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You don't count the loop that's on your hook. You just count this one here. I've seen patterns where they only did 5 or 6. I don't really care for that. I kind of like the 8. So now we're going to yarn over, chain 1, and we're going to turn our work. Okay, so now we're going to be working same thing, single crochet stitches, and we want to make sure that we're going to make one into this very first stitch right there. Okay, we're going to go right into there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Then right here, we're going to go right in here through both. We're still going through both loops. See, both loops at the top. Pull through again. So they may be a little tougher to see, but see how I can put my finger right through there? You're going through both of those top stitches, not just one. And we're going to do that all the way across. And we're going to keep going back and forth for 17 rows. So if you don't have a stitch counter or row counter, there are apps for your phone that are really nice that you can use for row counters. You can always just use a piece of paper and a pencil. And you want to make sure you go through this last stitch. So see, sometimes this last stitch is hard to see and you might miss it. So we're going to go through that last stitch and pull up a loop. And then you can always count. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So at the end of each row, you'll always chain 1, then turn your work. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing again. So just make sure you go through this first stitch right here. Don't miss this stitch. You're going to go right into there. That's your first stitch. Okay, so we're going to do 17 rows of single crochet. So do 17 of these rows and meet me back. Okay, so now that I have 17 rows or 18, You can kind of try to measure this if you want around your own stove, refrigerator, drawer handle, wherever you think you might want to put it. And you have to remember there's going to be this much extra on the end for your buttonhole. So if you measure it here, you know, you still want to allow a good bit. This fits around both my stove and my dishwasher handles, which are 1 1/4 inches long. So I'll go ahead and measure this. So from about the first row to the row where we start the buttonhole, about 5 inches. Okay, so I would say that a good rule of thumb is make this part 5 inches before you start your buttonhole. Okay, so one more row did it. I have 5 inches. I'm measuring it against this one. So I have right at 5 inches before I start my buttonhole. For people not in the US, that is 13 centimeters. So you want to be 13 centimeters before you start your buttonhole. Okay, right. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. Now we're going to do the buttonhole. Okay, for the buttonhole, I go down to a 3.75 millimeter hook. And the reason why I do that is I want to make sure that this buttonhole is tight enough, because see, it ends up being fairly big, to accommodate my button. I don't want it to be too big. So after making a couple of these, and you don't have to do this, I just like it. It seems to fit the buttons a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to go with an F or a 3.75 millimeter. You can go down to a 4, whatever you have. Okay, so we chained 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do single crochet 2 together decrease. Don't be scared. Okay, the same stitch right here on the end, this one. I'm going into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Don't do anything yet. Go into the next stitch under both of those stitches on the V, pull up the second loop. Now yarn over and pull through all 3. That is a single crochet decrease. Into this next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. Yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. In the next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. Yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2. In this same stitch with the double crochet, we're going to do a treble. That's 2 yarn overs, okay, 2 loops on your hook. Go into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through the last 2. That's a treble crochet, okay? We're going to do one more like that in the same stitch. So we have the double, the treble, and one more. So we're going to yarn over twice, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through the last 2. Now we're going to chain 1. That's going to give us our space for our buttonhole. And in this next stitch, we're going to do these same stitches the opposite direction. So we're going to do 2 trebles and a double. So yarn over twice into the stitch, pull up a loop, oops, pull through 2, pull through 2. One more treble. And once again, you can slow this video down with the little wheel on the bottom of your screen. and then now a double. Just one time we yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, pull through two, pull through two, half double crochet. So we're doing the same thing, we're just going back down the other side. Yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to do the decrease in the last 2 stitches. So we're going to go through, yarn over, pull up 1 loop, go into that very last stitch, see those 2 little V's, yarn over, pull up a loop, and this is our decrease. Okay, so now we can cut our yarn, and we're going to pull our tail up through here. Okay, so now I have my tapestry needle threaded through here, and to make this look really nice, I've tried a couple of different things. So you're going to fold it down this way, so this is the right side of your work. So you're going to want to do your weave in your ends on this side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through this one, and it's going to kind of give it a nice little finish there. Okay, and since this is my right side, and I'm going to fold it over this way, I'm going to weave the tail in through this side. And just do the best you can to hide it. I don't really want it visible on either side. What I do is I usually make my way over till I can get to these stitches here, and then I can go under these stitches. Okay, make sure you're on the right side of your work. Here's my little stitches, okay? And here's my tail over here. I should have known I worked right to left. I did this wrong, but I can fix it. So I weaved it in actually on the wrong side. So it's gonna come across this way. So I want to actually weave it in here. So I'm gonna do the same thing. Just gonna weave it into these stitches right here. Okay. And then this will be on the right side. Sorry about that. See, the good thing is when you mess up, you can fix it. Okay, so here's another trick. I can go in here if I don't have enough tail to weave in. I can go in with this little bitty hook. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to pull it through a couple more stitches. Okay. Sorry about that. My dog, we have a lot of wild turkeys outside, and they were up on the deck railing, and he saw them. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this through last couple of stitches to make sure it's nice and secure. Then you can kind of stretch these out a little bit. I can clip that. Okay, now it's on the wrong side, or the correct side. So now when I have my folded over, I had it turned backwards. So see, it's why you always have to make sure you're on the right side. Okay, now we're going to do the ruffle. I like to pick an accent yarn. You can certainly use the same yarn you were using previously. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my 5mm hook that I was using for the first part of this tutorial. Okay, so I only use the really small hook on this buttonhole portion. The rest of it you can use a 5 or 5.5, whatever you happen to be using. Okay, so I had initially had 48 stitches. 8 of them were used for the strap, so I have 40 stitches left. That's divisible by 2. So right here, make sure you're on the front side. If you're not on the front side, you'll know because you won't be able to see your stitches. They'll be behind you. So see this very first stitch right here, okay? So not this one, but this very first V. You can see the little V right there. I'm going to go in underneath both the loops. Now I'm going to grab my yarn and pull up loop, okay? And once again, you're going to have to work over your tail. So we're going to be working over this tail here. I grab my yarn. I am going to do one chain, pull that down tight, okay? And then I'm going to go back into that same stitch and do a single crochet. Pull up a loop, okay? Now I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And in the next loop, okay, in the next stitch, and I'm holding my yarn behind right here. So when I go into the next stitch, I'm going underneath my tail, pull up a loop, and single crochet. Then you're going to single crochet into the next stitch. Go through both loops in your tail and yarn over. Now right here we're going to do a chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3. Single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so single crochet right here to my tail. And single crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, 2, 3, and you're just going to repeat that. Chain 3, and then crochet, single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, and then do your chain 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And keep repeating that around and meet me back when you get almost to the end. Okay, so as you can see, I have 2 stitches left. And, oops, hang on. This was my last chain 3. And I'm going to single crochet into this stitch. Okay. And single crochet into the next to last stitch. And then I'll do, oops, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet into the last stitch. Okay, and that should take you all the way around your ring. Okay, and then we'll cut our yarn here. We'll just leave plenty of a tail. Pull it out, and then we just need to weave it in. Okay, so once again, this is my right side. So I want to weave it in the back. I'm going to go just through this little loop right here. Okay, make sure that looks okay from the front. Yes, it looks fine. And then I'm going to go here. You just want to try to weave it in where it won't be seen. So go right through here till I can get down to the stitches on the ring. And I'm going to go through those. I'm going to hide it there in the back of the ring. I'm going to go through, I don't know, 8 or so stitches, like so. That should be plenty. Cut our tail. Make sure you smush it back in there. Okay, and now all we have to do is put on our button and we'll be done. Okay, so for buttons, you have several options. You can buy these in bulk at different places, Walmart, Joann's, Michael's, and they come, not that one, but a lot of these come in, a lot of these are from these bulk button jars. You can get a jar of these buttons right here, and they're all natural wood, so they can be painted. So what I do, instead of trying to, you know, order a million buttons to try to find the one that's the correct color, oops, my little tail showing there. Let's see, so I want to clip that off. Okay, I got, I'll put these back. I decided I would paint the buttons that I wanted, whatever color I wanted. And I already had a whole bunch of these little acrylic paints. You can buy these at Walmart for 50 cents a container. And this jar of buttons was $10 at Walmart. And they're just about the right size for this project because you want a fairly big one. And they're, like I said, they're all natural wood, so they're really easy to paint with acrylic paint, or I mean, you could use spray paint, I guess, if you were going to paint a whole bunch of them same color. I don't know how well that would work otherwise. So I painted this one, this light pink color, and I kind of like that. I think it works well with the yarn color here. So that's just an option. Mainly I couldn't find buttons in the color that I needed. So this is the flower with the buttonhole. As I mentioned, I will put the link in the description below. This is a pattern that has to be purchased on Etsy, and it's proprietary, and patterns are copyrighted. So I cannot legally, without the designer's permission, show a tutorial on how to make this flower because this is her pattern. Otherwise, you can just, put a button on it and it looks fine just the way it is, like that. And you just sew your button on and just make sure that whichever button you use, make sure it's going to fit. So like this one's a little bit big. I would probably pick a smaller one. So just make sure that, the button you're going to use fits in your buttonhole that you made. And there you have your towel hanger. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram.